going on, everybody? Manny here once again. Welcome to DFS Zone, your source for daily fantasy sport lineup advice for the NFL and the NBA. Got a brand new video for you guys. I'm going to discuss some possible good plays as cash plays this week. I figured I'll make a video on cash plays this week. Time and time again, I get a couple of my viewers that ask me what are possible good cash plays for a cash game for them as far as a lineup is concerned, and I figured, hey, you know what, I might as well do a video this week on that. So, but before I get started with the video, guys, I appreciate you guys drop a like, and if you're new to the channel and you want to be able to get your NFL content as well as NBA, all lineup advice, strategies, tips, live shows, as well as the videos as well for every game on the slate, definitely should subscribe down below. Make sure you put on your post notifications. This way you don't miss out on any of those videos or live shows. Live shows for the NFL on Saturday nights at 7 p.m. We discuss everything pertaining to the slate, game stacks, team stacks, best value plays, any sleepers, you name it, as well as I even go over sometimes over the 4 o'clock slate to help out those as well. I do everything I can to answer as many questions as possible to my viewers, and basically it just really is a nice time. Hour and 15 minutes to about hour and a half. Definitely come down and check that out, and I'll be carrying that all into the NBA season, where I will have at least 4 to 5 live shows a week, 1 hour before game lock. So definitely stay tuned. A lot of content coming away. Make sure you do subscribe, become part of the DFS Zone family, and make sure that you have those post notifications on, so this way you don't miss out on anything. All right, as far as cash plays, at quarterback, I'm going to try to give you 1 or 2 in each position. I do have 2 quarterbacks that I like as cash this week. They're in favorable matchups. Matt Ryan is the first at 8,300. He's 6,600 on DK. He's putting up 329 yards per game, and as you see, 12 TDs. Out of the 12 TDs, 10 of them have been passing, 2 of them have been rushing, just to make that a note. 27.7 fantasy points per game. What draws me to him is obviously he's been consistent in the last 3 games. I look at the fantasy points, and then I look to see if he's somewhere near it or above it. He's been above in all 3 last contests, so that's definitely a positive. I love the fact that he's been throwing multiple touchdowns per game as well. And the beauty here, very little interceptions, which is awesome too. My only concerns going in with Matt in this contest is he's not at home, you know, and when he's at home, he's good. He's also very good on turf. That goes for the entire team. But every time Atlanta is on the road, and especially playing on grass, I'm always concerned. They got to go to the elements in Pittsburgh. I would think it's still good weather for Pittsburgh this weekend, but you never know if the elements change, if there's rain. Anything can cause this to be a bad game for Matt Ryan. But the longest everything's good, he is in a favorable matchup. Pittsburgh 29th in pass defense, giving up 305 yards per game. Also have given up the 2nd most touchdowns to offenses this year with 12. The quarterbacks have been rushing 24 carries, 136 yards for 1 TD. Not that that is a big factor for Matt Ryan, because he's not a rusher, he's not a scrambler, but he is capable of getting in the red zone and plunging that ball in himself. He has done that twice so far this year, so he's willing to at least run the ball. This game is the highest implied total game, so I see him as a good GPP play because of the upside of getting possibly 40 here as well against Pittsburgh, but he should be in this range. I think his floor is very good here. Over the course of the last 3 games, like I said, he's been smashing 27. I think he'll get at least 25 or better in this game, so I think he's a solid cash play as well. The only drawback, like I said, is my concerns with him being away from home and playing on grass as opposed to turf. But I think here still the matchup just reads that he should at least get 25 or better in this matchup, so I definitely like it. Pittsburgh, 2nd most DK points and Fanduel points as far as fantasy points given up to quarterbacks thus far this year. 31.1 DK and 28.9 Fanduel. So for me, you know, sign me up. He's a good core play, either or, cash or GPP. I did have him in my quarterbacks video this week. I did mention him in the quarterback videos this week. I don't have him. I mentioned him as he's definitely someone that I would be considering and will have some exposure to, but obviously I am favoring Big Ben at home. Next quarterback that I like in this slate as a possible cash play, and he's going to be the only one I'm going to discuss next. There could be a more cheaper play, but Phillip Rivers stands out to me as a good cash play here as well. He's pretty consistent, and he usually is. He's not going to put the biggest fantasy point numbers. He doesn't have tremendous big upside. He can get you 30 or better in some given days. He hasn't done it yet this year. But Phillip Rivers at 8,200 here on Fanduel, 6,700 on DK. He's averaging, he has a 68% completion percentage, just similar to Matt Ryan. He hasn't thrown for over 300 yards, but what I like and stands out for me is this. He's consistent in getting the ball in the end zone. He has thrown at least 2 touchdowns in every single game thus far this year. Also like Matt Ryan with only 2 interceptions, and I love that. The other thing I look at is to see if he's somewhere near that 23 fantasy points per game. He's at 22 and 22 here, smashed in between that 17 against the Rams. Granted, that's the Rams, one of the better teams, one of the better defenses against the pass. Here he put up almost nearly pretty much a 30 spot here against Kansas City. He was playing from behind, so obviously he had to fling the ball out there. As you can see, 51 attempts. He's averaging about 36 pass attempts a game, but this is his range, 27, anywhere between 30 to about 32, 33 is his range. But as long as he's able to put it in the end zone, we're going to get fantasy points, and I think he's in a favorable matchup here. I mean, we have a high implied total game. There's going to be a lot of offense here, and you're going up against the Oakland Raiders that are 17th in the NFL in pass defense, which is in the middle of the pack. They're not horrible, but they're not great. 263 yards per game. They have coughed up 8 TDs. Versus quarterbacks, the quarterbacks have been putting up 259 yards per game and 7 touchdowns. So out of the 8, they have gotten them through. The quarterbacks have been putting up 7. Quarterbacks have been rushing. They have had 11 rushes against this defense, 57 yards and 1 touchdown. Granted, that is not Phillip Rivers. He's not going to be scrambling around and rushing for yardage. So he's more of a pocket passer. But if you give him the time, he can be very explosive. When we look at it's also to make a point here as far as Oakland being the 17th. It's a little speculative. They've only played against a couple of handful of decent teams thus far. They only face Mr. Goff, Mr. Keenan, Tannehill, and Mayfield. So they haven't faced really some of those true elite quarterbacks that are very explosive offensively. And Phillip Rivers is not one of the top tiers, but he's probably one of the top 8 quarterbacks in this league for a long time now. And I believe that this game here, just due to the matchup, I think Oakland, even though they're 17th against the pass and they're doing fairly well against as far as quarterbacks, as far as fantasy points given up, only 18.9 and 18.4 on Fanduel, as opposed to what I just read you for Pittsburgh, who was giving up 31, second most, and 28 respectively. That is considered pretty decent. Fantasy points given up, not a whole lot, but I think this week is one week they'll give up more than 18. He is averaging 23. I think he'll be in that area. I think he's a good cash play, and he's actually a safe cash play because he's playing at home, good weather, where Matt Ryan is playing on the road and nobody knows what the elements are going to look like there, and because he has history of being not as good on the road. So if I were you, if I was anybody, I have exposure to either one of the two in a cash game, but I think maybe most of you will probably lean towards Phillip Rivers, and rightfully so. All right, running backs, right away stands out to me. I gave you guys as one of the running backs of the week. He's good as a core play, automatically core play for me. You could play him in cash. He's pretty steady there, and he has the upside to give you that GPP, especially in a favorable matchup like this against Oakland. Melvin Gordon definitely stands out. He's 8,700 here on FanDuel, 8,600 on DK. The numbers speak for themselves, man. He's had 2 100-yard games, 1 rushing, 1 receiving. He's a dual threat back. He's 5 TDs, averaging 69 yards per game, 23.4 fantasy points per game, and he's been pretty much near that for the last 2 out of the last 3 games. Granted, he had a little struggle here, even though he put up 80 yards on the ground and 1 touchdown against the Rams. Didn't get enough touches through the air, but this is a favorable matchup, like I said before, man. This guy, he's averaging 22, 23 touches a game. If he could put up 1 fantasy point per touch, he can definitely do it. He is that explosive. That's how dangerous he is. I mean, 5.3 yards per carry. That's the fourth most in the NFL. I mean, just the numbers speak for themselves. But against Oakland, man, their rushing defense is 30th in the league, 139.3 yards per game given up to running backs, 5 TDs, 5.6 yards per carry. The receiving backs have put up 13 receptions, 124 yards. That fits in perfectly with Melvin Gordon. 1 TD. They have not faced anybody like Melvin Gordon to top it off. 29.1 and 25.2 FanDuel and DK points respectively against running backs this year. And this is a guy, again, has had very, very big games, as you can see. And he's capable of it every single time he has the ball. But I love the factors that he's consistent. He's in a favorable matchup here, and he's capable of getting you even high 20s, even in the 30s. But I believe he's going to definitely be solid here at 22, 23. He can easily get that in this matchup. So I think he's a good cash play here, man. Definitely consider Melvin Gordon. My next guy that I'm considering at running back, man, is Christian McCaffrey. He's right underneath him. I think he's a great play here as well. You can use him for cash. I didn't put him down as one of my running backs because I didn't want to just give you a bunch of stud running backs. But Christian McCaffrey is a fine play also. 8,100 here, 8,000 on DK. He's had 2 100-yard games as well. Same thing like Melvin Gordon, dual threat back. He had over 100 yards rushing last week and 100 yards receiving the game before that. Obviously, they had a game plan here. They figured Cincinnati, was 21st in rushing defense, so they figured they pounded in between the tackles, and he did a great job there, and they kept on handling him the ball. 28 rushes, 184 yards. That is massive. Only 20.4 Fanduel points, simply because he's not getting in the end zone, man. I think this week he will have a shot. He's going up against the Giants. You got Cincinnati, Atlanta, and Dallas. They're going up against the Giants. The Giants defense, well, going back a little bit to him, with 17.3 fantasy points per game, and he's averaging 20 pretty much in the last 2 games. I think, to me, that's pretty decent cash play. I think his floor, you figure his floor is 10 right here right now, but I don't think he's going to get a 10 against the Giants. I think he's more than capable of getting 15 or better, and I think he could definitely touch on this 20, and I will not be surprised if he gets more than 20. All right. New York's rushing defense, 29th in the NFL, which is one of the bottom tier ones. 126 yards per game, 4 touchdowns they've given up to running backs. All right, the Giants have faced Kamara and Ezekiel Elliott, so now they're going to face another monster here. Versus running backs, they have struggled just simply the defense against running backs as far as receiving backs. 25 receptions, 221 yards, and 3 touchdowns. 31.6 DK and 27.5 Fanduel points. Very massive fantasy points there. I love to see that. And then you got a dual threat back that's put up 17 and is capable of putting up 20. When they give up that many, I really could see Christian McCaffrey finally getting in the end zone, getting a touchdown here. Plus, he's also at home. Great spot. Carolina usually plays very well at home, as well as Cam Newton. So expect those 2 guys to go off. So I love these 2 guys, man. Someone you could definitely mention as well is Mr. Barkley for the Giants in that matchup against Carolina. The only thing is the Carolina is fairly tough, and I'm a little concerned about that. But Barkley has been consistent as hell, man. I mean, 19, 20, 17, 19. He's averaging 18, 19 fantasy points per game since the beginning of the season. He is steady as hell. They need to get him more touches in this matchup. It's a tough matchup for Barkley. I mean, Carolina is 5th against the run and 4th against the pass. So either way you use him, you're going to have a tough go. So that's my only draw. That's my only concern. But I think he's capable of doing well because Gio Bernard 2 weeks ago put up 17 fantasy points against the Carolina team in Carolina. He had 12 rushes for 61 yards and a touchdown, and then he had also 9 targets with 5 receptions for 25 yards, and that's how he got his 17.1 fantasy points. I could see Barkley being able to do the same. So again, he is someone you could possibly consider. He's not a bad cash play. It's just the matchup is a little risky for me as far as him going into Carolina and playing the Carolina Panthers. But Barkley is someone definitely worthy to mention. At wide receiver, I really only like one guy that I think will be a fine cash play, and he's in the, I'm choosing somebody here a little lower price. I mean, you could consider Robert Woods. I think Ridley is going to be highly owned. I think could be a nice, viable cash play. Cooper Kupp I like there as well. And I think I passed him. No, I did not. Tyler Boyd, he's going to be highly owned as well. I think maybe in the 30-40% range because he's been doing so well. But you can't pass him up in a cash game. If you could squeeze him in, he's 6,300 here on FanDuel, 5,700 on DK. Slowly but surely, his price is going up. But he's becoming a really big part of the offense here. He's got a great connection with Andy Dalton. He had 15 targets last week, 11 receptions. Obviously, John Ross went down, and John Ross more than likely is still down this week. 2 100-yard games in a row, man. Really impressive, and I like the fact that he's at 15 fantasy points per game, and he's averaging 15 or better in 3 straight. Granted, he didn't do well in the first game, but he didn't need to. He started getting more involved in his offense over the last 2 or 3 weeks, and you can see the difference. 9 targets, 7 targets, 15. The catch percentage is good. The yardage has been absolutely out of this world, 91, 132, and 100. He's going up against Miami. Miami is 26th in pass defense this year, 285 yards per game and 5 TDs. Granted, that's the best area of Miami. They have not given up a lot of big plays. But this young man is a big playmaker. And this is one of the reasons why they target him quite a bit. And another thing also, Miami has not faced great opposition. You think about the offenses they have faced. even at 26 pass defense and only giving up 5 TDs, the reasons why they've played against the Patriots, the Raiders, the Jets, and the Titans. And now they're going up against Cincinnati that puts up a ton of points. Their offense is fairly good, okay? They're one of the, out of the 4 teams I mentioned, I would think they're one of the better offenses other than possibly the Raiders. And Miami did play well enough to beat the Raiders. But I think the Raiders are a better unit, and they're going to be a better unit in the weeks to come as far as offensively and defensively. But Tyler Boyd is a viable, nice play here as a cash play. I really like the matchup, and I think that he's capable of doing it. Again, getting back to Miami, 678 yards they've given up to wide receivers this year for 169.5 yards per game. So that means the other proportion of the yards per game are coming through the running game. 3 TDs out of the 5 have come from the receivers, so that's something nice to see there. And then the DK points, 31.8 and 28.3 Fanduel points, which are massive fantasy points. And we've got a kid who has 15 here, capable of getting 20 or better. I love the matchup. I think he's a fine play at cash. You can lock in Tyler Boyd. My last guy I'm going to talk about is the tight end here. And you know what? A tight end, man, I'm looking at all these guys. It's just so hard, really, to find somebody that can be really steady. I know there's a lot of good GPP spots, but if I'm going to go with anybody steady, obviously you got Ertz, which I mentioned as one of my tight ends this week. I think he's in a fine spot. I think George Kittle, as much as most people are going to pick him, he makes the logical sense for me as far as a cash play. I mean, he's consistent. They are utilizing him. Another thing that you have to understand, when you're choosing tight ends, you got to choose a tight end that is a part of the offense, that he is really involved in the offense, getting a few touches, you know, and he is starting to get more and more touches each week, and rightfully so, because, I mean, he is shown that he could be a pretty good playmaker. But Kittle, 6,400 here, 54 on DK. Obviously, I like his price better here on Fanduel. It's $1,000 more expensive, but, you know, again, we have $60,000 budget here. So 6,400, he's a better priced tight end here. If he continues to get his targets, he'd be fine. But look at the targets: 9, 4, 7, and 8. 125, 79. The last 2 weeks, 12 and 21. He's averaging 12. He had 11.5 in week 1. I could see him. You figure his floor is probably 8 or 9. I would say 11 here, because he's been at 11 or better in 3 out of the 4 matches. But again, I just, you know, he can get you 20. We know that. He already did that here last week against the Chargers. He's going up against Arizona. Arizona is right now 12th in pass defense, which is pretty respectable. Only 236 yards per game versus tight ends. They've given up 13 receptions for 143 yards and 2 TDs. They have had the least. They have the 8th least fantasy points given up to tight ends thus far this year at only 8.9 and 9.4. But they only have placed the 4 teams that they have played against have been Washington, the Rams, the Bears, and Seattle. And the only team that really utilized their tight end in those matches were the Bears with Burton. So this is the first time Arizona is going to see someone that utilizes their tight end as much as the 49ers do this week with the 49ers in George Kittle. And that's another reason why I like the matchup. Not so much on what Arizona has done against the pass, but more so whom they have played. So that's just why you got to look in deeper once in a while. Look at these stats all the way through and see if it makes sense. So George Kittle makes sense for me. Good cash play at tight end, man. Going up against Arizona. I love George Kittle here. I think he's going to get 8 to 10 targets easy in this game. They're in a favorable spot. They're at home, and they need a win. And I can see it happening here, and I can see him getting in the end zone again. He only has had 1 touchdown thus far. So, again, George Kittle in play for me. And that's basically it, man. Those are the top cash plays I think that I could advise my viewers that they should consider targeting. Again, it's my opinion. I did the homework. I did the research. More or less, some of this looks really, really good on paper as soon as you see it. But nonetheless, I think they're very, very good, viable cash plays this week. So that's pretty much it for the video, man. Again, drop a like. Hopefully you like the content. And if you haven't subscribed as of yet, please subscribe down below. Put on those post notifications. And I'll see you guys on the next video.